Our first honoree, Senator Joe Biden. Joe Biden represents the state of Delaware in the United States Senate since 1972, where he was elected at the ripe old age of 29. For over 3 decades, Senator Biden has played a pivotal role in shaping U.S. foreign policy. He is respected at home and around the world. He is well informed. His common sense approach to international relations, little inside information from my business, the news business. We give a title to politicians like Joe Biden. It's high praise in our business. We call politicians like Senator Joe Biden a sound bite machine. That means he has the ability to say what he means and mean what he says in 20 seconds or less. That's a gift that we appreciate in television, for sure. Many times he has been ahead of the curve on foreign policy. For example, warning on September 10th, 2001, that the real threat to the United States would come not in the form of an ICB missile, but in the belly of a plane. And warning in last fall's presidential debate that, quote, an out-of-control Pakistan was a bigger threat to the U.S. than Iran. Senator Biden is also the author of the New York Times best-selling Promises to Keep, an autobiography of life and politics. And in it, he recalls not only overcoming his demoralizing stutter that lasted into his teen years, but coping with personal tragedy. It also chronicles his struggle to rebound from 2 near-fatal brain aneurysms. Senator Biden is the father of 3 children and lives in Wilmington, Delaware with his wife Jill, and commutes to Washington, D.C. when the Senate is in session. If there is anyone who is emblematic of the perseverance and determination embodied by this honor, it is this year's winner of the Freedom, Voices, Changing Lives Leadership Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Joe Biden.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Brian. As I walked up to Brian, I said, I didn't know you remember the club. There's a lot of us out there. To the members of the board, to my fellow stutterers, to the parents of those who anguish, and it's not an exaggeration to say anguish, over seeing your child have to deal with the debilitating impediment of stuttering. And to those of you younger men and women here who are working your way through what many of us have had worked our way through, it's a great honor. Truth of the matter is my wife Jill can tell you, and by the way, today is my wife Jill's birthday.
Yes.
Other than this, including the nomination, would allow me to be in an event the night of her birthday. I promise you. I promise you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
Ladies and gentlemen, as my wife can tell you that from the stories in our family, I literally would have found it less preposterous to have suggested to me when I was 15 or 17 or 18 years old that I had received this award than it would be if I was told I was going to win the Nobel Prize for chemistry and I hated chemistry. I mean, it really was, literally, as you recall, all of you who do stutter, that it's the single most defining thing in my life. And we've all had serious things happen to us in our lives. But I can think of nothing else that has ever stripped me of my dignity as quickly, as profoundly, and as thoroughly as when I stuttered. In grade school, I was bye-bye Blackbird, because there was a song in the 50s that was Bye-Bye Blackbird. When I was in high school, I went to a Catholic boys' school where we had to take 2 periods of Latin. My nickname from the second day in that high school was Joe Impedimenta. Impedimenta is a baggage train in Latin that is cumbersome. And so my nickname is Joe Impedimenta. I was the scoring championship in football in my state. I was a pretty good athlete. Quite frankly, I don't know how I would have made it were I not a pretty good athlete, to be honest with you. I think I would have had no confidence. And my nickname was Dash. People actually thought it was because I was a pretty good halfback. It was because my colleagues on the team even said I spoke like Morse code, ... So ladies and gentlemen, the notion that I'd be standing before you today was not something that really crossed my mind. The notion of being able to speak a clear sentence for the longest time in my life was something I thought I could never accomplish. I can vividly remember that it wasn't my prowess on the football field, it was my lack of any prowess in a classroom. And I was one of those guys who was thought to be, thank God, relatively smart. Because all of you know, if you have a son or daughter who stutters, the most debilitating aspect of stuttering. And one of the honorees tonight is sight impaired. I read his biography where he said, dealing with his blindness was not as difficult as dealing with his stuttering. Because ladies and gentlemen, when you have a club foot, a withered arm, cannot see, the public makes no judgment about you. They may make fun of you, but they make no judgment about you as a person. They don't make a judgment about who you are, what your character is. But the most insidious thing about stuttering is to the listener. They ascribe the most unusual motives for your stuttering. Many of the things that Brian pointed out. We're thought to be slow-witted. We're thought to have serious emotional problems. We're thought to have had parents who did not care for us or treated us and abused us. I am embarrassed to say, Catherine, that I was asked 28 years ago to be involved with what was then the National Stuttering Institute because a priest that taught me in school was a director. And I was a young senator. And because of what was associated with those of us who stuttered and the bizarre notions about we were not emotionally fit, I decided it was not worth my doing that. And I'm ashamed of it. I'm ashamed of not wanting to be such a high-profile figure and acknowledging that. So ladies and gentlemen, you know, as was stated, even today, if one were to tell a joke about a stutterer, people feel absolutely free to laugh at it. It's hysterical. You cannot tell a joke about someone who is hearing impaired, or sight impaired, or a paraplegic. But someone who stutters, it's still free game. It's funny to everybody. I can remember as yesterday that feeling of rage, anger, and humiliation of being made fun of. Brian, I did not walk away. I learned to fight. Literally. The joke about me was, don't screw around with Biden if you had a sledgehammer. And I was the runt in the litter. I mean it sincerely. I'm not proud of it. But I did not. I did worse. I confronted. And so folks, in many ways, I'm fortunate to be here, not only because of my overcoming a debilitating handicap, especially in our fields, acting, broadcasting, public life, but because I let my rage gain control of me sometimes. And those of you who are stutterers not only resent the fact that people would think less of you as a person, that there's something, a flaw in you if you stutter. But I think the thing that bothered me the most was that old expression, God protect me from my friends. Just slow down, Joey. It's okay. Or worst of all, finishing my sentence for me. Ladies and gentlemen, like many of you, I didn't overcome this myself. I did not have the benefit of Catherine, and I mean that literal organization, Catherine. We talked a little bit about this. But I learned through my own regimes how to deal with this. But I had a mother and a family that absolutely continued to, in every single aspect of my life, reinforce my confidence in every other way. It's true, Joey, the reason you stutter is because you're so smart. You just can't get it out quickly enough. I knew it wasn't true, but I felt better for saying it. Joey, you're the most handsome boy in school. What the hell does that have to do with stuttering? Nothing. You're a great athlete. Joey, nobody is smarter than you, and nobody is better than you. You're no better than anybody else, but no one's better than you. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we underestimate, I don't know what from the standpoint of the science these days, Catherine, but I think it matters. I think it matters that we don't lose these kids in terms of their self-image of themselves early on. And so you parents, if I may respectfully suggest, dealing with this child who stutters, do everything in the world to let them know you know that's not the definition of who they are. And don't fixate on it for them. They know. Help them in every way. Now some of you won't be like my mother, who's 91 years old and lives with Jill and me, a sweet Irish Catholic lady named Catherine Eugenia Finnegan, who's about 5'1", and as my friend and great, one of the best speech coaches, I think the best speech coach in America, Michael Sheen, will tell you, is the sweetest lady in the world. I'm going to end with a story you may appreciate. One of the great advantages I had was I went to a small Catholic grade school with the nuns, the so-called dreaded nuns, but they were people who would tell me that I could do whatever I wanted to do and reinforce me, except one nun in 7th grade. And one of the things stutters will tell you is, it teaches you to be extemporaneous, it teaches you to memorize, it teaches you to anticipate, and it teaches you an awful lot of things. In truth, in my darkest days, I would not trade my stuttering today for what it's taught me and what it's made me. Because it's been the single most beneficial thing that's ever happened to me, having overcome it. Because if you want to understand, we have an expression in my family. This is not a joke. You never call a fat person fat. You're not allowed ever to say anything about anyone that's true, if in fact it is demeaning, under any circumstance. Never. And until you've been on the other end of the humiliation, it's awfully hard to fully understand and appreciate the depth of the hurt that people feel. And I think it's taught me a lot. One of the things I learned, you're going to hear from a truly great entertainer tonight. Shane is going to speak, and I read his bio, and it said his speech therapist said that singing was a way to deal with this. Well, my nuns didn't know that, but they did know that singers tended not to stutter, so they taught me in reading. In Catholic school, you read and wrote in order, and you know which paragraph you're going to read, and you sit in alphabetical order. And they taught me to learn how to read this way, to get in cadence to what I was doing so that I would not lose control and be able to do it. And I got to 7th grade, and there was a nun named Sister Janet, as my mother would say, God bless her soul. And I'll never forget, as vividly as it did yesterday, that and in my household, if you were chastised by a nun or a priest in the Catholic school I went to, you got chastised at home, right? Not a joke. But this particular day, we were reading, and I looked down, and I knew I was going to read the 7th paragraph. And so I memorized it quickly. My colleagues give me credit for knowing an awful lot of Irish poetry. The reason I learned Irish poetry, I stood in front of the mirror in my bedroom with my 2 brothers at night, looking at the mirror because I was embarrassed. I would contort my face, and I'd practice. Meek young men grow up in libraries believing it's their duty to accept the views of Cicero, Bacon, and Locke. So this day, having mastered by that time the ability to memorize very quickly, I memorized my paragraph. Because I don't know about you all who stutter. I'd look at the page and freeze. I'd look at a word and freeze. And I said, and Sir Walter Raleigh laid his cloak round so that ladies' shoes would not get muddy. He was a gentle man. He always went on there. And the nun stopped me. She said, what's that word, Master Biden? And I said, gentle man. She said, Master Biden, what is the word? She wanted me to say gentleman. And I froze. And she said, Mr. Biden. And in my household, to stand up in the middle of the class and walk out on a nun was close to excommunication. And I got up and I walked out, and she tried to grab me. And I walked out and I walked out and walked 2 miles to get to home. When I got there, my mother was waiting. And my mother said, get in the car, Joe. And she had my brother, who was 13 years younger, just born. And we get in the car and we drive down. We go to the Mother Superior's office. And it was like one of those jewelry movies, you know, they had that opaque glass that separated the secretary's office from it. And I could hear my mother say, is Sister Janet available, Mother? She said, yes. Can she come down? Yes. In those days, a nun could lead a class of 50 people and not worry about it. She walked down, walked by me, gave me that evil eye, walked in and sat down. She said, Sister, did you say to my son, Baba, and the Mother Superior said, that's irrelevant, Mrs. Biden. She said, no, it's relevant. Did you say that? And the nun said, I was making a point, Mrs. Biden. With that, my 5'1" mother got up, stood over her, and I'd never been so proud in my life. And I could see her because the sun was coming through. Standing over the nun seat and said, Sister, if you ever refer to my son like that again, I'll come back and tear that goddamn bonnet off your head. Ladies and gentlemen, none of us who overcome it have done it alone. None of us have done it alone. So I say to all of you, young people here who may be grappling with this, you can be a great country and western singer. You can be a great actor. You can be a great news person, watched every night on television. And you maybe even can run for president. And hopefully you'll do a hell of a lot better than I did. Thank you all very much.